First, I'd like to introduce the team that's going to be helping out tonight. So far, obviously, it's me. There's Flannery. Mariah is going to be our camera person. Mariah is right here. Mariah works in the store. She does the product listings on the website, a little of this and that. She'll be a salesperson if you come by the shop as well. Also, Ellie is going to be our admin, Zoom admin. Ellie leads rides for the shop. In fact, this Friday night, there's a Wilder Buffalo ride. Ellie does promotions for it and will be leading the ride. And right now, we're working on setting up pastry rides for this spring. So yeah, watch for Ellie at those. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here. What I would like to talk about is kind of the basics of what we're going to be doing tonight. I'm going to run through some of the differences in a variety of the cargo bikes that are available. And I'm going to do my best to give you kind of a good introduction. So when you're able to get out and do some test riding, you'll have a little better sense of what might be something that makes sense for the family, how you're going to use it. Just a couple of kind of things for tonight. If you have not registered on Eventbrite and you're on, put your email in the chat and Ellie will grab that. There will be an email follow-up going out tomorrow with some of the things that we're covering tonight, some details about that. Also, there will be a coupon for $100 off of a cargo bike, and that promo code will be sent out in the email. So look for that there. There will also be a raffle at the end. So if you want to get in on the raffle, we're going to need your email address to make that happen. Okay, so hang on just a second and we're going to switch over. There you go. I don't know what I just did. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start with what is called a front-loading cargo bike. So right here, the Urban Arrow happens to be this brand of cargo bike. Urban Arrow is kind of a classic front-loading cargo bike. Front loaders are real nice in that they keep the weight real low. And the advantage of having the weight low is that when the kids move around, they're going to have less influence over you. So you're always with a cargo bike, you are dealing with the weight when you are starting and stopping, having to be pretty deliberate and intentional when you're doing that. But to be honest, the cargo bikes, once you're rolling, it's unbelievable how much weight you can carry on them and really not have them be throwing you around or having as much influence as you might be thinking as you're thinking about it. Kids weigh this much, I only weigh this much. It is amazing what can happen on two wheels once you have a cargo bike with a nice long wheelbase and a way to keep the weight nice and low. So keeping the weight low, rider position, being able to have conversations with the kids, see them right in front of you. Also loading it is really dreamy because loading it's just so simple. Like this one is designed, this is a foothold right here. So a little step for the kids to climb in by themselves. So that is a front loader. Advantages are keeping the weight low, easy loading, easy to carry around a large amount of kids and cargo. Disadvantages are the size of it. So it's a more vehicular kind of bicycle. Mind you, one thing that a lot of people kind of are concerned about is the width. To be honest, the width is never much different than the width of handlebars. So if you are riding on a bike path, the reality is you're going to be just fine. You're always going to need the width of your handlebars. So while you may be a little intimidating to people that see you on the trail, Honestly, it's not taking up any more width than your typical mountain bike that has big wide handlebars on it. But also transporting this is a real challenge. So I definitely have loaded them into minivans. So not to say that it can't be done, but we're talking about a 7 to 8.5 foot bike, depending upon which model and so forth. So they're long, and we're in an urban setting. Most of the people buying bikes from us live within 10, 12 miles of here. So honestly, 90% of the cargo bikes that we sell are getting picked up and being ridden home. So maybe that transport problem is more of a concern down the road if you're trying to figure out how to use it on a holiday or something like that. But those are kind of the simple points about a front loader, and things to kind of keep in mind. There is a learning curve to riding this. So when you are riding it, that wheel is out there and you're not really seeing that front wheel from where you're sitting. I will say that it might look kind of intimidating. 10 minutes of riding around the neighborhood gets you over about 85% of the learning curve. So yes, it takes a couple hundred miles to truly become kind of intuitive about the whole thing, but it's not too much. But speaking of learning curve, we'll move over to the long tail. So this is a kind of a typical long tail bike right here. This is a Yuba Combi. There is zero learning curve when it comes to getting the hang of a long tail. So it just rides like if you have, I don't know, kind of a heavier commuting utility bike, it really doesn't feel any different than that. You're a little bit longer, but not so much longer that you're really taking turns any differently than you would. So big plus there is that zero learning curve, you can jump and go. So front loaders, long tails, sorry, are distinguished by the weight is going on the back of the bike. They have this long rack on the back. Again, wheelbase is nice and long. The idea is with the long wheelbase is that we're keeping the weight between the wheels. Again, once you're up and rolling, it rides really smoothly and you don't feel the weight that much, but starting and stopping, you definitely have to be deliberate about it. When you put the weight on the back of the bike, it's still between the wheels, so the bike can handle the weight very well, but it is going to have more influence on you, the rider, when the kids are moving around. Like I say, that can be overcome just by having some conversations with the kids. It's okay to move your hands around, but you can't be swinging side to side, that kind of thing. Again, we're able to put a lot of weight on the back of these bikes. I did want to point out, so this is a true long tail. There's something called a mid-tail, and this is a mid-tail right here. Not quite as long of a rack. Here at the shop, we kind of, like on the website, we just categorize things as long tail and as front loader. Long tail being a bike that you're going to be carrying the majority of the weight, and the kids on the back of the bike. I will say long tails typically have some really nice front rack options, so you're able to carry some things around on the front, but that's you're not putting kids up front. The kids are all riding on the back. So mid tails are just a slightly shorter version of a true long tail. The recent Mueller here is a mid tail. This is the Turn HSD. HSD is a very popular bike for us. Not 100% family oriented. So in terms of who we're selling it to, this is selling to a mix of people that are using it for families and some that aren't. We're going to be pretty limited to one child on the back of a mid-tail. That being said, you totally, like if there's going to be a play date, putting two kids on, riding them home, all good. It's just, if you're buying a bike for 2 kids, you're probably going to be looking at a long tail or at a front loader. Anyway, so that's kind of a quick, brief summary of these styles of bikes. We've got a guest speaker that's going to be here. Flannery Clark is a customer of the shops. Flannery and her husband Mike have a couple of cargo bikes, and if I remember right, 2020, when you were shopping for a bike, Flannery, you had a car that was dying, and you were thinking about using the cargo bike instead of replacing that car. And I know I've seen you and George on the bike a lot. I see Flannery and Mike on the trails in town a lot, so I know they're using their bikes. Anyway, I'm going to pass it on to Flannery, and we'll hear what she has to say.
Thanks, Luke. I should warn people that if you bring your kids to the shop, Luke will become their favorite person, and they'll just beg to come and see Luke whenever they can. So Bike Shop Luke is a major feature in our household. So like Luke said, my name's Flannery Clark. My pronouns are she and her. I live in South Minneapolis with my husband, Mike, and our now 4-year-old, and our crazy golden retriever who we're trying to teach to ride the bikes too. I walked into Perennial trying to buy a long-tail bike in June of 2020, and Luke convinced me to try an Urban Arrow while I was there. And that's what we bought, spoiler alert. We were really sold on the ease of loading and on being able to talk to George in the front of the bike, which is all still true. And he was 2.5 at the time. So that was the other piece, is it was just nice to be able to chat when they're really little in front of you. It was really nice. We came back in the spring of 2021 and bought a Tern GSD, which is a slightly larger version of the HSD, which Luke just showed. You can put 2 kids on the back. And George was 3 when we bought that. And the biggest thing I can say about cargo bikes in our household is that we underestimated how life-changing it would be. 2 weeks into having the bike, we were a 1-car family, having our first cargo bike. And what it meant for us was we thought we biked a lot before we bought the cargo bikes. Now we bike all the time. It's the default rather than something that is kind of a project for us. So for daily commutes to work when we go to the office, daycare trips, groceries, biking is the default. And about 8 to 9 months out of the year, we don't drive for trips under 5 miles each way. That's sort of our, it's not a project at a 10-mile round trip. On weekends, 20 miles is sort of our normal Saturday morning bike ride. Too many playgrounds. I know those of you who have kids understand. Saturday morning playgrounds are very important in our lives. The other piece I would say is that I'm the slower cyclist in my household. My husband can probably bike at twice my speed on non-e-bikes. And having an e-bike means that I can keep up with him and that I can cycle when it's hot, which was a real problem for me before. So I'm gonna see, can I share my screen? Let me see if I can. Nope. I have a few photos, which I will share if I get screen sharing privileges. Oh, hey, now I can share my screen, thanks. So these are our 2 cargo bikes with George about a year apart. And here's what it's meant for us. When we take our kid to preschool, we pretty much take him on the bike with an extra kid because we pick up his classmate along the way and run a bike pool. It's pretty much a party on my bike every single morning of knock-knock jokes and whatever music they've asked to listen to. When we go to get groceries, we take the bikes. Target pickup lets you put in a bike as the option when you're coming for your order pickup, but they are very perplexed by cargo bikes. When we go swimming at Nokomis to take the bike, the Urban Arrow is a great changing room for a 3-year-old, in case you're wondering, and it contains the mess. And on the right is a picture of me taking George and an ice cream party for 50 coworkers on our Tern GSD last summer. No big deal. Was super easy to do. The top picture is me picking up the rooftop box for our car from a neighbor. I only biked it 2 blocks, full disclosure, but I did bike it, and that thing is 7.5 feet long. And then picking up our Christmas tree, that would have been in 2020 when it was not so snowy at Christmas. And then part of the reason that we came back for a second cargo bike and we bought a Tern is that it fits in the car. So this is our GSD in the back of our Subaru. We took it on a road trip to Montana last summer for 2.5 weeks. We just packed everything else around it. And it was so wonderful to have that option when we were traveling. And George is so used to biking everywhere that he couldn't envision why we wouldn't bring the bikes. So we did. And then these are just other pictures of us picking up sort of ridiculous loads with the bikes. My mother was in town. She's gonna hate me that I shared this picture. And we were going swimming and she wanted to go with us. And so, you know, she fits in the box of the Urban Arrow. And then the picture on the right is from my husband's office. He bikes 10 miles one way to his office in St. Paul, and it's cubicle land. So he's able to stand the Tern up on its end for storage, which makes it very easy, but also a real feature in his office. And then when it got cold and windy this fall, we couldn't imagine giving up the bikes. So we put lights on it, and it's a rolling Christmas light party at our house. And then we put pogies, the bar mitts, on to really keep going in the winter along with studded tires. So this picture was at the art shanties at Lake Harriet a couple of weeks ago. So I think that in the end, what I would say is that biking is life-changing. I biked more than 1,200 miles in the last year. I could not have envisioned that before I bought a cargo bike. For those of you who are in the Twin Cities, going up the Marshall Hill is no big deal with an e-bike, which it used to be something I went miles out of my way to avoid. And biking is actually faster. If we are going to hop on the Greenway and come down to Perennial or bike around the lakes, go to Sea Salt, it's usually faster than driving, which we love. And given that I've bought 2 e-cargo bikes from Perennial in the last 2 years, it's probably not shocking to say that it's life-changing, but I will say that you know, we haven't been biking a ton in the deep winter. And every time we walk out to the garage, George says, "Can we take the bike on this trip? Can we take the bike on this trip?" I said, "George, it's 10 below zero. Can we take the bike?" He's totally warm in that little tent on the back of the bike and has no problem, and usually refuses a coat when we're there. So, and I will say that we like having both. Obviously, that's a huge privilege to be able to have 2 cargo bikes, but it gives us a lot of options, obviously taking one with us on the road, but also just being able to throw everything you want in the box of the Urban Arrow is sometimes a really handy piece to have. So, Luke, I'm wrapping up. I can see you still moving around.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Flannery. I really, really appreciate it. And we are approaching the end of February, so we are going to be able to get George on the bike soon enough. But yeah, it has been a very challenging winter. Yeah, some things are easier than riding a bike in the winter, but another couple of weeks, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you down here and having a donut with George again. Okay, thanks so much. I'd like to say that if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Also, there will be a Q&A when I'm done. Ellie will be watching for some questions in the chat. Otherwise, you'll have a chance to unmute in just a little bit, and we'll be able to take your questions then. I do plan on being done early. I will stay and answer questions. Yeah, we'll do a raffle a little bit later. I guess I'm gonna hand the camera to Mariah, and I'm gonna show kind of some details of some of the ways that people are using the bikes. And a big one is like how to stay warm. And so there we go. So this was one of the bikes that Flannery had in her pictures, the one that had the lights on it. This is a Turn GSD. So this is a true long tail. Earlier, I showed you a Turn HSD. It's a slightly smaller bike. Anyway, this is set up with a popped-up rain cover. You can see inside here, we've got a couple of things going on here. We've got a bottom thing called the storm box, and then we've got the storm shield on the top. You can just do the storm shield and have your regular bags down here. So guys, there's a variety of different ways of doing it. Clearly you're hearing from Flannery, the bike has become true transportation for the family. So being able to get out in any weather conditions has its benefits. And yeah, kids get cold. So if you can keep the kids warm, you're up there pedaling, you are getting some exercise. It's pretty easy for you to generate some heat, but your kids are not. The way this bike is set up right now, the child seat on the back, child seats typically are going to be from 1 year to 4 years of age. So it's not until the kids are, say, 3.5, 4 years old that they're going to be sitting on the seat and just holding on by themselves. Clearly, they're capable of sitting there and holding on when they're younger than that, but they need to be focused and they need to not let go. And so it takes a little bit of maturity, not just the physicality involved. So this would be a really common setup right here. Say you've got 18-month-old and a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old is going to be able to sit on the bench right here, hold on to the rails right here. And then your 18-month-old is going to be in the harness right there. These seats are easily removable. I'm going to move over to, we've done a few things while Flannery was talking to the front loader, the Urban Arrow. There is also a rain cover for it. And this has one of the seats on the back that we've put on. And I can just show you that the seat itself is something that isn't very permanent. It's easy to remove it. It's easy to put it on. And so if you weren't always wanting the seat on the back, it's pretty easy to remove that. I will say the little micro environment that the kids make inside of a front loader is really, really nice. It definitely will help keep kids warm, keep them fully covered up. This just pulls up. This Urban Arrow right now is set up with a front seat as well as a rear seat. It comes out of the box. When you buy an Urban Arrow, it comes with the bench and the 2 seats here. You can add a 3rd seat to the front. That's kind of a pretty typical setup right there for the front loaders. And this, it's pretty easy just to put groceries or gear inside with you. It is possible to set up the bike so that they do carry or that you pull a trailer. We definitely have larger families that are like, they want to be able to head to the beach and bring, inner tubes and lots of towels and a cooler. Maybe they want to carry more stuff than might be possible just on the cargo bike. So setting it up with a trailer is something that can be done pretty easily. In terms of the question about electric assist versus not electric assist, it's really, you're able to get both front loader and long tail in either way. So it doesn't have to be electric assist, but it can be. It's really a question of range. How far would you like to be able to go? When Flannery talks about a 20-mile Saturday, 20 miles is going to be a pretty hard push carrying kids and groceries out and about without power assist. With power assist, yeah, you're not limited to kind of the normal things in terms of how long you can handle it, how in shape are you. Mind you, they are strictly assist. There's not a throttle on them. So you're going to get exercise either way. Clearly, cost plays a big role here. If you can afford to get a cargo bike with electric assist, the chances of figuring out how to fit it into daily use go up significantly. So that would be to your advantage to be able to do that. If you're thinking, no, what we really want to do is be able to do a preschool run or a run to the elementary school and back, typically you're not going to be more than 3-4 miles from that place. Doing that on a non-power assisted bike, completely doable. So then, be shopping for those bikes. But in terms of, I don't know, what features, what the bikes can do, whether they're electric assist or not, it's the same. It's all about range. If you foresee yourself wanting to have the capability of going farther distances, yeah, then electric assist might be something for you to consider. So those are a couple of the setups. I'm just going to kind of walk around and show a few other setups so you can get a feel for things. This is a Yuba Super Marche. This is obviously a front loading bike. Super Marche can be had with a canvas cover called the open loader with child seat, or it can be had with they make a bamboo box for it as well. So it can be done both ways. This is a shop bike that's here as our demo bike. So it's just set up for us to be able to put kids in and have them go. I'm going to show this one, Mariah. This is a GSD it's in for repairs. It's this particular family have a daughter that is, I think she's 8 or 9. And she just rides here. She hangs on with these bars. She sits on the padded seat. They've used some of the smaller bags on the back so that there's a nice place for her to put her feet. There are full-size bags, so if you wanted larger bags, mind you, the smaller bags are actually quite massive. So being able to put 2 bags of groceries into that is totally doable. So kind of how you set it up kind of would depend on how you were planning on using the bike. This right here is a trike. So the trikes, obviously stability is something you don't have to be concerned about. You're able to load up. We've got the cover here for it. We've got seats with harnesses right there. This would be a situation where maybe it's just too much for, I don't know, if it's a small mom or dad that have a couple of larger kids, maybe the 2-wheelers are just a bit much to handle, or they want to be able to just carry tons of stuff. This loading it up, no matter what weight it is, you're not even have that starting and stopping. The concerns over that are gone. You're not having to worry about what that feels like. So the trikes, we don't sell many of them. They don't have the range. So this is electric assist, but it's not something that you're going to really be all that comfortable going. If it's a 5-mile ride, that's about what you would use this bike for. And lots of times it would be shorter than that. So it serves a purpose, but isn't quite as utilitarian as you might think. I guess that was a bit of a surprise for me anyway. Here is Yuba spicy curry is definitely a big selling long tail. The spicy curry probably has like the longest deck of all of our long tails. So we do have quite a bit of space. The idea of being able to carry 3 kids on the back is a pretty doable feature with the spicy curry. This is shown again with that, like I was saying before, we could put a, say, 1 to 4-year-old on the back, put a pad here, and put an older brother or sister up front. So that's something that'd be pretty easy to set up for a 2 kids situation. They also have a big bag, long bag system that goes on the back. So if carrying a lot of groceries is something you want to do, you'd be able to do it. I mentioned earlier that with long tails, there's often the ability to put a large front basket on the front. Both Tern and Yuba have a big basket like this, and it mounts directly to the frame. So when I turn the handlebars, it's not turning. So this is a basket very different from your typical like little wicker basket, what you might be thinking for your typical bike. It is something that you can load up with a cooler, or you can load up with groceries. Mind you, it's also very easy to throw the kids' backpacks or a diaper bag or things like that in it. So that's kind of a nice option for all of the long tail bikes. Here's another Tern that's set up. You can see this was inside of the bike, like inside of Flannery's bike. This is called clubhouse bars. This is kind of the foundation of that storm shield and storm box, but you don't have to use the storm shield or storm box. You can set this up. Can be kids sitting here hanging on, or can be 2 seats. The most current cargo bike that we sold was one this afternoon, and it was a Tern GSD, and it's for twins that are going on the back. The twins will be I think 18 months in April. Their plan is to start riding in April. It is not that common that there's 2 seats on the back. Usually the kids are spaced out in age enough. But twins or kids that are within a year of each other, you're going to end up with 2 of these seats on the back. It's an extremely secure way to carry young kids around on the bike. And this is something that can be put onto a regular bike. That is a situation where the influence, we're talking about kids moving around and the influence they have. Obviously, if it's just your regular bicycle, it's going to have quite a bit of influence over you. So you just kind of need to be aware of that. Ellie, what time is it? 7:07. Great. Okay. So I wanted to show another bike over here. Didn't know if we had time. So this is a bike that I ride, and it's just straight up utility. And you can see that it's ridden a lot in the winter. I've got a lot of grit on the bike, and I do ride throughout all winter conditions. Like Flannery, I do have studded tires on the bike. So both the front and the rear have studs on them. This is a smaller box on the front. Not a great kid carrier. This is more about just being able to carry stuff, grocery store, or carry it around, or put in there whatever it is that you want. So that is a way to do a cargo bike that my kids are not little anymore, so they're not coming along with me. So I'm going to be using a bike a little more like that, and I absolutely love it. So super fun. I wanted to, so we're getting close here to doing Q&A. I wanted to point out Mariah, if you could show the prizes. So we're going to do a raffle later on. We've got an Urban Arrow sweatshirt, and we've got some swag over here from Tern and from Gates. Gates does a belt drive and several of the bikes are available with a belt drive. Anyway, we're going to do a raffle later, and I wanted to be sure that when we do that, we'll be reaching out to you tomorrow to figure out how you get those items. Okay, so I'm ready to do some Q&A. If I can just take the camera from you, Mariah. Thanks. Okay. Ellie, do you have any questions in the chat, or are we just looking for people to take off audio and ask questions?
Yeah, we have a few questions here. First one being, how low do the seats go? Someone asking who is 5'1".
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is going to be dependent upon which bike that you're shopping for. But one of the big advantages of all the cargo bikes is they are set up to be very adaptable to different riders. And so the idea is that you could share your bike. 5'1" is definitely nothing extreme in this world. So we'd be able to fit you. So then it's a matter of what you're comfortable with. I know that just today I was talking to someone and they had a sister that's rather short and was had never been fit very well to a bike and wasn't very comfortable with things. And this woman ended up getting a Turn HSD. The HSD was something she was very comfortable with, and it was for kid carrying, one child family. So yeah, I think 5'1" should work just fine, though it definitely wise to test ride. And we do sales appointments, and sales appointments are kind of all about test riding. One more thing on the fitting. So on the bikes, the angle of the seat post, that seat tube, the seat post is going into the seat tube. That angle on these bikes is tipped back a little bit. And the idea is a shorter rider kind of gets slid in closer to the handlebars to be in a rather upright position, whereas a taller rider is moving farther away from the handlebars to get a little more reach. So hopefully we'd be able to fit you without much trouble.
Next question, and this was mostly answered, but if there's anything else to add, are there trike options for front loaders? Talked about the Trio bike mono. So
yeah, right. So yes, the Trio would be what we're stocking for front loading trike. And depending upon what you're planning on using it for, we've been very happy with Trio. So, but that's certainly not the only one on the market. It's the one that we'd have in the store that you could give a test ride to and see how it went.
Great. Next question. How do the cargo bikes handle Minnesota winter roads?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So part of this is just how used to riding on Minnesota winter roads are you? Because it can be really, really hard to ride any bike and through a Minnesota winter. I have been doing this for a long, long time. And so I've been riding through winter for 30 plus years. And for myself, I think they handle great in the winter. I will say there's advantages and disadvantages each way here. Front loaders don't have a lot of weight on that front wheel if it's not loaded. So if you're doing school drop-offs, after dropping off your child, your ride home could be a little dicier because that front wheel, the studded tires, they're not gripping quite the same as when it's loaded. Mind you, long tail, the rear wheel doesn't have quite as much of a load. And so same situation, but it's not quite as big a deal on the rear end. It just means you have to, if you're on ice, you have to be pedaling pretty simply, pretty gently on the ice so that you don't spin out. I think it's probably arguable, but I think the long tails probably handle the snow a little bit better. Now, your question may have been more about how does the bike mechanically handle the snow and salt. It's no different. If that was the question, it's no different than any other bike. You have to take good care of it. You have to clean it up. My bikes definitely do a cleaning, but I do look at the chain pretty much every week to make sure I'm keeping the chain in good condition. So.
All right, next question. If there's any other differences between the 2 and the 3-wheel front load bikes beyond what you already mentioned?
Well, so it is bigger. So while I've had success putting a 2-wheeled front loader in a minivan, I'm not sure I would have success with the 3-wheeler. And in fact, I just don't think I would. So that would be a disadvantage to the 3-wheeler. It's going to be harder to transport. So the 3-wheelers also, you know, the center of gravity, you as rider are quite tall on that. And so you have to take corners quite slow, because if you take it at speed, the bike's not leaning, or the trike is not leaning, your bike would. And so you just have to be a little bit more careful. So getting accustomed to riding the 3-wheeled front loader takes a little more time. So it's not to say that it's not something you can't become, it can't become intuitive to you, but it will take a little bit more time than the 2-wheeler, just because the 2-wheeler, you've been doing it all your life, you've been balancing a bike, you've been leaning into turns, these are things that you're used to. So you kind of have to recalibrate your mind a little bit.
Great. And then a question about the difference in battery range on all the different e-bikes.
Yeah, awesome question. So I didn't get into any specifics regarding the electric assist, but clearly before anybody were to make a decision of buying a bike like that, you would need to be kind of working those things out, because it would matter a lot in terms of what you're planning on doing with it. So all of the bikes are going to have a range of, say, 18 miles to 40, 45 miles, depending upon which mode you use. So you can use, you know, a different assist levels, and you'll get more mileage depending upon which level, more or less, depending upon which level you use. I tend to like to blast home. I'm kind of all about using the turbo mode on a Bosch power assisted bike with a 400 amp hour battery. But my commute's less than 5 miles each way. So I'm not even coming close to depleting my battery. And I do charge it pretty much every one of those at the end of each of those, or not each of the rides. On out and back, I charge it. Out and back, I charge it. So it does kind of play a role. So another thing there is a lot of the bikes have the ability to take 2 batteries. We talked a bit about the Turn GSD, and that's the bike, one of the bikes that Flannery has. The GSD has 2 battery mounts right on the bike, whether you buy it with 1 battery or 2. And so on our website, how we've managed that is the bike that, say, the Turn GSD S10, we're showing that with the 1 battery, and then there's an option of how much it would cost you to get a second battery. The second battery, you are literally doubling your mileage. So if mileage is a concern, you might right away be talking about which of the bikes has the ability to take 2 batteries. GSD is the only bike in the store, and the only bike that I'm familiar with that literally is completely wired for 2 batteries. no matter how it's set up. And so we order most of our bikes with a single battery, but we have a large stash of bikes that are batteries, and so you can always double your range or double your battery power by getting a second battery. It's certainly something to consider if you are looking at a bike to replace a car. If you're thinking, okay, this is going to be something we're doing to try and go car light, so maybe single car family instead of having two cars. Yeah, you need to be aware that the range is very important to keep your eyes on. So thanks for the question.
Great. Last question we have in the chat right now. Question about supply chain issues with bikes since the pandemic. So are there any cargo bikes that would normally be carried in the shop that aren't available or have a longer wait time? Just general questions around that.
Yeah, it's totally great, fair question. So supply chain in the bike industry is a nightmare. There is no question about that. Mind you, we as a Perennial Cycle, our bigger concerns is say a bike's in for a repair and it needs a new rear derailleur. Man, I mean, it's hit or miss as to whether we're going to be able to fix that bike. We're talking this year or not. Mind you, with cargo bikes, that's like a really important thing for Perennial Cycle. And so the second there started to be the hint of a supply chain issue, we were jumping all over the dealers or the manufacturers that we work with. And I've worked hard to have good relationships with them. So the reality is we are sitting on a lot of bikes right now. And last year we had solid inventory throughout. Not to say that there weren't some holes. I remember last year, Spicy Curry was a bike that they just simply didn't deliver. And it wasn't until late August that we caught up on those. Mind you, right now, I've got 3 colors of Spicy Curries and many available of each. So there are some things that we're doing to try and manage this. One of them is just kind of manage expectations. So on our website, if something is out of stock, Mariah has been working hard to get some language on there saying when that product is expected to come in. Like right now, the HSD S8i is a bike that Shimano has a hard time supplying the hubs for that bike. And so last year, we didn't have many of them. I've ordered a lot for this year, and we are expecting them. Mind you, not until May, but we are expecting them, and we Turn does a great job of putting out dates that are trustable. Right now, I guess one thing to note, like if you were interested in an Urban Arrow, Urban Arrows are the new 2022s, aren't available yet, but it has been announced what they're doing, and they're raising their prices $1,000 on each of there's just 2 models on each model. When they announced that, we ordered a bunch of the 2021s because the changes just aren't that massive. So right now we're pretty excited about having a good inventory of Urban Arrow family cargos because as soon as those sell out, the price is going to go up $1,000. I'd be happy to address a more precise, like what line of bikes are you thinking about? So this is all pretty general, but I will say, looking at our website, we have tried, if something's out of stock, we've tried to put a 2022 update and an expected delivery of that bike. If you ride a bike and you decide, okay, that's really the one I want, the one that you don't have, but you're getting, we can figure out how to put that on reserve for you. I'm not sure that answered that question very well. There's a lot of words. Sorry about that. Supply chain is a hot topic in my daily life right now. Inner tubes, like, my God, I've never really had to think hard about inner tubes. Right now, like last Thursday at 10 p.m., I got an email notification that a specific inner tube was in stock at a warehouse. Next thing you know, I'm, in my pajamas on a computer trying to make sure I get a big enough order that I get free shipping just so that I can get those stupid inner tubes. That is an unusual situation for a bike shop owner, but it is currently the reality that I'm at. I will tell you this, we will be as honest and transparent as we possibly can regarding supply chain. I have heard nightmare stories from people asking questions that they keep getting led down the road that something's going to show up and it doesn't. So that's hard. That's challenging. We will do our best not to have that happen.
Okay, we had one more question pop up in the chat, and that is, which brands are available with the Gates belt drive?
Yeah, great question. So Gates is Turn is big on Gates. So right now the SOO is the GSD bike that we have in stock that has a Gates belt drive. There's 2 colors. We have both colors available right now. That is one of the upgrades that Urban Arrow is doing for 2022. Their higher end model, which is called the Cargo, a little confusing because they're all cargo bikes, but they have a performance and a cargo. The Cargo for 2022 will be coming with a Gates drive. Also, just of note, Urban Arrow is something that we can retrofit an existing bike to having a belt drive on. So yeah, for us here in the store, it's going to be, it doesn't have to be long tail, or both long tail and a front loader, but it would be Urban Arrow. Reese and Mueller is another brand we do. They do some pretty amazing front loaders and mid tails. And yeah, the Turn GSD and HSD both have numerous Gates options. I would say Turn is the brand that has spent the most time kind of developing their bikes around a Turn belt drive. This is a one-on-one kind of session, and that question might be over the head of a lot of people, just to point out. So Gates is a company that makes a belt drive that's available for lots of bikes, and the advantage of a belt drive, for one, it's silent, it's wonderfully silent, but they're extremely durable. And so you get way more mileage, and they need, the maintenance is really minimal. So yeah, the belt drives are something worth checking into. Well, I'll put some links out. There's a cargo bike guide that the Bike Shop Girl puts out, she's called the Bike Shop Girl. Arlie is her name. Arlie puts out a whole lot of information that's extremely helpful. It can be, depending upon how deep you want to go online, you can spend a lot of time on Arlie's site. She's got YouTube videos and blog posts that are extremely helpful. Arlie owned a bike shop in Colorado, a cargo bike shop in Colorado for a while. And she's an amazing human being. And so I know, did you just put her link in the chat? Yeah, so we put the link in the chat, but I'll also put that in the email to follow up. I really appreciate everybody coming, and I hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, give a call or shoot an email. An email that goes through our website will get to me. I'm Luke. And I'll also put together or put a link in the email for sales appointments. If you wanted to be able to come by and test ride some bikes. I know we've got better weather coming around the corner. We have a lot of demo bikes, so you'd be able to come and get a feel for what makes sense for you. And yeah, that's it. I really appreciate you coming. Thanks so much. And I'm going to sign off. Thank you.